plans for the off season and possibly playing or just doing individual workouts?
Yeah, I mean, probably take a little bit of a break here, just for maybe a week. I don't really want to lose a ton of the stuff I've worked on, and just trying to get my body back to full health.
Everything was lined up perfectly. It was supposed to be the victory lap. After nearly 3 decades of operating in the red, subsidized by the NBA and fighting for scraps of media attention, the WNBA finally hit the jackpot. The massive media rights deal was signed. Arenas were sold out. The merchandise was on back order. The league had finally found the one thing it had been missing for 28 years, a transcendental superstar who crossed over into mainstream culture. Cunningham Clark didn't just bring fans. She brought an entire economy. But right when the players should have been uniting to secure the bag, something ugly started to rot from the inside. Instead of rolling out the red carpet for the Golden Goose, a faction of the league decided to cook it. We are witnessing one of the most baffling acts of self-sabotage in sports history. The WNBA Players Association has opted out of their collective bargaining agreement, hoping to negotiate a massive pay raise. But simultaneously, a loud, bitter group of veterans seems determined to bully, batter, and alienate the very player who made those pay raises possible. It is a war between the past and the future. And if the jealous faction isn't careful, they're going to destroy the negotiation leverage they desperately need. To understand why this is such a catastrophe, we have to look at the numbers. Money doesn't care about feelings, and it definitely doesn't care about seniority. Before Cunningham Clark was drafted, the WNBA was a niche product. That's not an insult. It's a financial fact. The league was losing an estimated $10 to $50 million a year. Then the Clark effect hit. We're talking about a viewership increase of over 170% on ESPN. The Indiana Fever, a team that used to struggle to fill seats, suddenly led the league in attendance, drawing more fans on the road than home teams had seen in years. This wasn't just a bump, it was an explosion. This influx of cash and attention gave the Players Association the confidence to opt out of the CBA 2 years early. They looked at the revenue and said, "We want our share," and they are right to do so. The players deserve better travel, higher salaries, and better benefits. But here's where the sabotage kicks in. Negotiations are based on leverage. You need to prove to the investors and the owners that the product is stable, growing, and professional. But what have the owners seen instead? They've seen a coordinated effort by certain players to physically intimidate and publicly demean the league's biggest asset. It started with the comments. Legends of the game, people who should be mentoring the next generation, went on podcasts and minimized Clark's achievements. They claimed she wouldn't handle the physicality. They claimed her records weren't that impressive. When that didn't stop the train, the aggression moved to the court. We all saw the hip checks. We saw the blindside hits that had nothing to do with basketball. To the casual viewer, the millions of new fans tuning in, it didn't look like competitive fire. It looked like bullying. It looked like a group of people who were angry that the new girl was getting all the attention. This perception is poison for business. When a league looks like it is eating its own young, advertisers get nervous. Brands like Nike and Gatorade are pouring millions into Clark because she represents excellence and excitement. They are not interested in associating with a league that looks petty and vindictive. Every time a veteran player takes a cheap shot at Clark, whether it's a physical foul or a shady tweet, they're chipping away at the professional image of the WNBA. They are effectively telling the world, we are not ready for the big time. But that wasn't the whole story. While the haters were busy trying to humble the rookie, another faction of players began to emerge. The ones who actually understand the assignment. Enter Sophie Cunningham. The Phoenix Mercury guard has become an unlikely but crucial figure in this narrative. Cunningham isn't Caitlin Clark. She doesn't have the same records or the same global following. But she has something the jealous veterans lack. Business savvy. Sophie Cunningham represents the new guard. She understands that in 2024, an athlete is also a content creator. She embraces the tunnel walks, turning her pre-game arrivals into fashion shows that go viral on social media. She engages with the fans, plays with a smile, and understands that entertainment value is what pays the bills. You don't see Cunningham going on podcasts complaining that the media talks about Clark too much. Instead, she rides the wave. She knows that more eyes on Clark means more eyes on Phoenix, which means more eyes on Sophie Cunningham. This is the fundamental split in the WNBA right now. On one side, you have the Sophie Cunninghams and the Caitlin Clarks, players who realize that a rising tide lifts all boats. They are ready to capitalize on this moment to build generational wealth. On the other side, you have the old guard, the players who seem stuck in a mindset of scarcity. They're used to fighting for crumbs. So when a whole loaf of bread finally appears, their instinct isn't to share it. It's to fight over who deserves it more. This scarcity mindset led to the biggest fumble of the year, the Olympic roster. Leaving Caitlin Clark off the Team USA squad for the Paris Olympics was a decision that will be studied in marketing classes for years as an example of what not to do. The selection committee, comprised of WNBA insiders, argued that Clark hadn't paid her dues and that the roster was based on merit and experience in a vacuum. Maybe that argument holds water. But the Olympics isn't played in a vacuum. It's played on a global stage. By leaving Clark at home, the WNBA effectively told millions of global viewers, "We don't want you to watch." They chose internal politics over global expansion. They prioritized the feelings of veterans who felt they deserved a spot over the financial health of the sport. It was a move driven by the same jealous undercurrent that fuels the hard fouls. They wanted to prove that the league was more than just Caitlin Clark. Well, they proved it. And the ratings for the Olympic Games, while decent, were a fraction of what they could have been. That is money left on the table. Money that could have gone into the players' pockets in this upcoming CBA. Now, let's talk about the specific mechanics of this sabotage. The Players Association is asking for a completely new economic model. They want a revenue split similar to what the NBA players have. Currently, WNBA players only share in revenue if the league hits certain aggressive targets they rarely hit. They want a guaranteed 50-50th split of the income. This sounds fair on paper, but for a 50-50th split to work, the income needs to keep growing. The owners are not stupid. They know that this growth is fragile. It is almost entirely dependent on the Clark boom. If Caitlin Clark were to get injured, perhaps from one of these jealous hard fouls, or if she were to retire early because the environment is too toxic, that revenue evaporates. The TV ratings drop, the ticket sales plummet, and that $2.2 billion deal suddenly looks shaky. By targeting Clark, the players are increasing the risk for the owners. And when risk goes up, the offers go down. The owners are going to be hesitant to guarantee millions in salaries if they feel the players are actively trying to destroy the product. The racial to trap. A major talking point from the jealous faction is fairness. They argue, I've vebiant this league for 10 years. What os the rookie jet the private teja treatment? What os thema on the talkabowther? The size of fundamental misunderstanding of entertainment business that in the NBA, LeBron James gets more attention than a bankwarmer. That isn't unfair. It's reality. The veterans demand dingiqualatention without generating equal revenue coming goff fast illusion alto thebus in this world. Sophie Cunningham exposed this delusion perfectly to shed in demon detention. She commanded it. She built a brand. She understood the tifawent the camera. You have to give the camera something to look at. Shekri attesments. The bitter players, on the other hand, are a demon ding attention simply because if I exist. They feelowed, and they entitlementistic sick during a negatia tushin that yot sant negotiate from a place of entitlement. You have to negate it from a place off all you. Let's dig deeper into the sabotage tactics because it goes beyond just hard fouls. It's the narrative warfare. Throughout the season, we saw a coordinated attempt to frame the new fans as racist or misogynistic simply for supporting Clark. While there are certainly trolls online, there always are. Painting the entire new fan base with that brush was a strategic disaster. You literally had players attacking the paying customers. Imagine walking into a store and the employee screams at you for liking the wrong product. You wouldn't go back. By antagonizing the new fans brought in by Clark, these players are limiting the league's growth ceiling. They're trying to gatekeep the WNBA, keeping it as a small exclusive club for the real fans rather than letting it become a global powerhouse. This is the definition of sabotage. They would rather be queens of a tiny hill than partners in a massive empire. The CBA negotiations are going to bring all of this to a head. The current agreement expires after the 2025 season. The clock is ticking. The owners have the upper hand because they have the capital. They can afford to wait. Can the players? Most WNBA players still play overseas in the off-season to make ends meet. They need this new deal desperately, but to get the life-changing money they keep talking about, they need to present a united front. And that brings us back to the silence of Caitlin Clark. Throughout all the drama, the cheap shots, and the media snubs, Clark has remained stoic. She hasn't fired back. She hasn't called anyone out. She just plays. This silence is deafening. It highlights the immaturity of her critics. It makes the veterans looking for a fight look like they are shadowboxing. But more importantly, it signals to the owners that she is the adult in the room. The owners are going to build the league around Clark, Cunningham, and the players who get it. The next CBA will likely include clauses that incentivize marketing and fan engagement. We might see a shift where the money flows heavily toward the players who drive revenue, leaving the jealous faction behind. The irony is that by fighting so hard against Clark's dominance, they're only accelerating the transition. They're proving that the old way of doing things, the insular, prickly, us-against-the-world mentality, is obsolete. The tragedy here is that it didn't have to be this way. Look at the NBA in the 1980s. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird hated each other on the court, but they understood that their rivalry was saving the league. They worked together to promote the game. They understood they were business partners. The WNBA veterans had the chance to do the same with Clark. They could have embraced the rivalry, hyped up the games, and turned every matchup into a pay-per-view worthy event. Instead, they chose to try and delegitimize her. This brings us to the Sophie Cunningham solution. Why is Shetaki Bikasha Provesiat and Thave Tobe Caitlin Clark doing Thisnura? You just the veto, stop hating. Cunningham's house had his theorisblenio from further stars to shine. Did Thespot like Clark brought to Bijan, and if they just spin to instead off trying to smash the bulb, that Cunningham's contract, extension, on the endorsement, deal SAR proved hat the market award adaptability, that Sabotage isn't just about money, it's about a legacy. The veterans want to remember as the pioneers were built a league. And the air, but they are currently writing a final chapter that paints themes that the villains. Years from now, when people look back at the explosion of the WNBA, they will see the footage test shots. They will read the quote softy bitter insults. It will attain a legacy of players who are originally like great in the court, but cold and thin lethy gotcha coffo fit. That's so. What happens next in negotiations will I ugly. There is a real possibility of if the players demand too much, while active litimaging the product. The owners might decide to play hardball. Planning to the toxiculture is serious and why revenue projections aren't guaranteed. They might say, "Fix your house before you ask for a bigarala once." The Players Association needs to have a serious internal meeting. They need to still set the voice off division. They need to Ellen Temzel vest with thereby gestacid. It's them for the jealous players to swallow their pride of forth to say cough their wallets. If they can't hat, they are going to offend out the hard if the market is ruthless. The WNBA's finally amateurly gave us and in business. You ether adapter that you get left behind. The combination of Clark, silent dominancy and Cunningham slouch successes double print. It destroys the argument that a guy's sunfair, and it proves that the enlightening holding WNBA crite knows the attitude of the players themselves. Femini is there. The fans are ether. The future I sit in gray tin front of them wearing a number 22 jersey. The question remaining is whether the jealous players will stop trying to cleat the future and start trying to cash in on it. Because a mistake, the train is leaving the station that Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham are on board. Sitting in first class, there rest off the decision to make. Get humble and enjoy their staying platform, complaining at pathetic kept price while at opportunity for lithetomy disappears in the distance. The Sabotage's stas the percent negotiations went be payday. There'll be a reality check. And forcing me off the players, the triality is going to be very, very expensive. Everything was lined up perfectly. Ike was supposed to the victor lap. After nearly 3 decades of appeared in Ginthard, subsidized by then beyond fighting for scraps off media attention. The WNBA finally hit the jackpot. The massive rights Delwa signed. Arenas were sold out. The merchandise was in back order. The league had finally found the Nathan Jithad been missing for 28 years. A transcendental superstar will cross the into mainstream culture. Caitlin Clark didn't just bring fans. She brought an entire economy. But right when the players should have been to secure Thebig, something Guglies started a route from the inside, instead of rolling out her carpet fourth golden goose. A faction affiliate did to cook it. We're witnessing an optimus baffling gag soft self-sabotage in sports history. The WNBA Players Association has opted it off their collective bargaining agreement, hoping to negotiate a massive pay raise, but simultaneously allowed bitter group of veteran Sims determined Ned Debuli, batter, and Alina Tethevery player those pay raises as possible. I disour between to past and the future, and if the jealous faction isn't careful. They are going to destroy the negotiation leverage of Thades pertly made. To understand with this such a catastrophe, we have it Lucatha numbers that money doesn't care about feeling Senate Federalito isn't care about seniority. That before Caitlin Clark was drafted, the WNBA was Seneca product. That's an insult. It's a financial fact. Feliguus losing gain estimated $10 to $50 million aired. Think Clark effect that. We were talking about a viewership increase of over 170% on ESPN. The Indiana Fever, ate him to the city struggle to fill seats, sudden lull the league in attendance. Drawing.